They say mothers should know their place. So when I offered a gentle opinion at my granddaughter's birthday, my daughter turned to me and said, "We do not need your opinion, Mom." The whole room went silent. I simply smiled, because 2 weeks earlier, I had signed my will in silence. I removed her name. And when the lawyer read it out loud, her smug little smile vanished. You have to see what happened next. Before we go back, tell us where you are tuning in from. I have always believed that mothers build their lives around their children, and not the other way around. For 43 years, I adapted my world to Melanie's. I graded papers late into the night so I could attend her swim meets. I postponed my PhD defense by 6 months when she needed jaw surgery in her senior year. After Richard died suddenly when she was 12, I worked 2 jobs, teaching during the day and editing academic journals at night to maintain her sense of stability. My colleagues called me brilliant. They never knew how many times I chose family over professional promotion. When Melanie launched her marketing firm, I withdrew $87,000 from my retirement account to help her during that first struggling year. The penalty for early withdrawal was considerable, but I said nothing. When she and Kevin bought their first house in West Hills, I contributed the down payment, money I had saved for a sabbatical year in London that I never took. When Jasmine was born, I rearranged my teaching schedule to watch her 3 days a week until she started preschool. I still remember the smell of Jasmine's hair as I rocked her to sleep, humming the same lullabies I sang to Melanie. The way Melanie used to climb into my lap with picture books, demanding again at the end of every reading. The Mother's Day cards she made in elementary school with careful declarations in cursive that I was the best mom in the universe. The tears of pride in her eyes when I crossed the stage at her college graduation, though I suspect they were more for her than for me. At some point, my daughter's eyes stopped meeting mine. My calls started going to voicemail. My suggestions were met with tight smiles and quick dismissals. "It does not work like that anymore, Mom," she would say, but my checkbook was always welcome. For Jasmine's 22nd birthday, I spent 3 weeks knitting her a cardigan in her favorite shade of blue. I used cashmere yarn I had been saving for a special occasion. Maybe that is what motherhood is, a lifetime of saving things for other people's special occasions. "Mom, could you not have worn something a little more current?" Melanie's eyes landed on my cream silk blouse and navy trousers as I stood in the entryway of her West Hills home. Behind her, I could see the dining room table set for Mother's Day brunch with delicate china and fresh flowers. "I thought it was quite nice," I said, smoothing a hand over the silk. "It was one of my best pieces bought for a speech I gave in Columbia 5 years ago." "It is fine," she sighed. "The caterers are on the deck. Everyone is outside." I followed her through the house, admiring the new abstract painting in the foyer. Probably expensive, knowing Melanie's taste. My gift bag containing the hand-knitted cardigan for Jasmine bumped lightly against my leg. "Grandma!" Jasmine rose from her chair with a genuine smile and crossed the deck to hug me. Her warmth was a balm against the cold morning. At 22, she had Richard's height and my eyes, but a sweetness all her own. "Happy Mother's Day," Kevin said, standing to kiss my cheek. Always polite, my son-in-law, though he rarely held my gaze for long. "You look good." "Barbara," Christine, my daughter's older stepsister, nodded from across the table. We'd never been very close, but she had the decency to greet me. Her husband, Tom, raised his mimosa in greeting. I took the empty seat next to Jasmine, noting it was the furthest from Melanie at the head of the table. The deck overlooked a carefully manicured garden where the dogwoods were starting to bloom. Richard would have loved this view. "We ordered your favorite, Grandma. Eggs Benedict," Jasmine said, squeezing my hand under the table. "How thoughtful," I smiled. "And how are your new classes going? You mentioned that design course." "Oh, Mom, please do not start boring her as soon as you sit down," Melanie interrupted, adjusting her gold bracelet. "It is Sunday. Let's not be heavy." "I do not mind," Jasmine said quickly. "I actually wanted to tell Grandma about my project. I am using some of the textile design techniques she showed me last summer." "Those old weaving patterns?" Melanie laughed, glancing at Christine, who smiled thinly in response. Honey, nobody does that anymore. Your professor will think you are hopelessly retro. Actually, there is a huge revival of traditional craftsmanship in modern design, Jasmine countered. My professor specifically mentioned, well, you should talk to Marcus at my agency, Melanie interrupted. He is doing amazing work with digital textile rendering, much more marketable skills. I watched my granddaughter's shoulders tense slightly, but she said nothing. I recognized myself in that small gesture, the art of containing disappointment to keep the peace. The caterers arrived with the first course, small plates of avocado toast with microgreens and edible flowers. The conversation turned to Kevin's recent promotion and the kitchen renovation Christine was planning. I listened and made the occasional comment when spoken to. Barbara, Tom said during a lull, I heard the university is going to name the new scholarship after you. Congratulations. Thank you, I nodded. It is for non-traditional female students in the humanities. Nothing grand but meaningful to me. Mom taught there forever, Melanie explained to Christine's new son-in-law who had joined us. It is ancient history now. She laughed lightly, but the dismissal stung. 34 years, I corrected softly, and I still sit on the Emeritus Advisory Board. Does it not feel like the university is stuck, though? Melanie mused. All those old buildings, old ideas. When Jasmine was looking at colleges, I practically begged her to consider something more progressive. Your mother was chair of the linguistics department, Kevin reminded her. She was highly respected in her field. Of course she was, Melanie said, waving a hand. In her day, my day, as if my intellectual contributions had expired, like milk left too long in the fridge. When the Eggs Benedict arrived, I realized I had little appetite. Jasmine noticed, her eyes questioning, but I smiled reassuringly. It was not the first time Melanie had diminished me in company. Over the years, I had developed a shell of dignified detachment. Grandma, Jasmine said, I actually have a huge favor to ask you. I am applying for that design internship in Copenhagen we talked about, and I was hoping you could review my application essay. Your editing skills are legendary. Of course, darling, I would love to. Jasmine, Melanie cut in sharply, your father and I have already paid that career coach to review your materials. There is no need to burden your grandmother. It is no burden, I said, and with all due respect, Mom. Academic writing is completely different from what Jasmine needs here. Creative industries have totally different expectations now. Actually, Jasmine said, the application specifically asks for a narrative about our creative influences, and I was writing about Grandma's textile collection from her research in Peru, and how— Oh, honey, Melanie laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Nobody wants to read about dusty old fabric samples. You should focus on contemporary influences, digital platforms, sustainability, things that matter now. The table fell into an awkward silence. Even Kevin looked down at his plate here. Those textiles are museum-quality pieces, I said quietly. The Metropolitan acquired similar works from my colleague just last year. Mom, Melanie said, her voice taking on that slow, loud quality people reserve for the very old or the very simple. I am sure your old research was important in its time, but Jasmine needs to look forward, not backward. She's about to enter a cutting-edge industry. I put down my fork. My old research, as you call it, is still cited in contemporary ethnographic studies on textiles. Just last month, I received a request from a doctoral student in— This is exactly what I mean, Melanie said, turning to address the table at large, rather than me. Mom lives in this academic bubble where everyone still communicates by— What? Carrier pigeon? Christine laughed politely. Kevin studied his mimosa with unusual intensity. I send emails, Melanie, I said dryly. I even text. Sometimes I use Zoom. That is not the point, she snapped. The point is that Jasmine needs guidance relevant to today's world, not old-fashioned advice. I do not think Grandma's guidance is old-fashioned, Jasmine interrupted, her voice quiet but firm. Melanie's face hardened. That is precisely why you are still living at home at 22, unable to commit to a clear career path. You keep getting sidetracked by these romantic notions of craft and tradition instead of developing marketable skills. I'm not sure this is the time, Kevin began. No, it needs to be said, Melanie insisted. And frankly, Mom, you are not helping by encouraging these impractical pursuits. I reached for my water glass, my hand trembling slightly. I simply believe Jasmine should follow her passions. We do not need your opinion, Mom, Melanie interrupted, her voice slicing through the spring air. Just your checkbook. The table went completely silent. Even the birds seemed to stop their singing. I felt the words like a physical blow that momentarily stole my breath. Across the table, Christine's eyes went wide. Kevin stared at his wife in shock. Melanie, he said softly. My daughter did not look at him. Her eyes were locked on mine, defiant, unapologetic. 71 years of life had taught me many things. Among them, never give anyone the satisfaction of knowing they have hurt you deeply. I took a slow sip of water, set the glass down, and wiped my lips with my napkin. I see, I said finally, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. I rose from my chair, picked up my purse, and pulled out a small envelope. This is for you, Jasmine. Happy birthday. A few days late. Grandma, please do not go, Jasmine said, standing up too. I just remembered an appointment. I lied smoothly. Thank you for brunch, Melanie. It has been illuminating. I placed the gift bag with the blue cashmere cardigan on the chair and turned to leave. Mom, do not be dramatic, Melanie called after me. You know I did not mean... Enjoy the rest of your Mother's Day, I said without turning back, my voice carrying across the deck as I walked toward the house. The check is in the envelope, Jasmine. Apparently, that is all that is required of me. I walked through the house with what I hoped was dignity, though my heart was pounding. Behind me, I could hear Kevin's deep voice and Jasmine's higher one, rising in what sounded like an argument. Once in the car, I sat still, hands gripping the steering wheel. I did not cry. Instead, I picked up my phone and scrolled to a number I had not called in a while. Marcia Klein's office. A pleasant voice answered. This is Barbara Ellison, I said, surprised by the steadiness of my voice. I need to see Marcia as soon as possible. It is about my will. As I drove away from my daughter's beautiful home, I looked back once. Through the glass doors, I could see them still sitting at the table, Melanie gesturing emphatically. Only Jasmine was looking toward the driveway, her young face worried. Some lessons come late in life. This one had been a long time coming, but I was finally ready to learn it. There is power in being underestimated. There is strength in silent action, and there would be consequences. Telling and preparing this story took us a long time, so if you are enjoying it, please subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. The drive from Melanie's house to downtown Portland was 23 minutes, but I needed more time. I parked by the river and walked, watching the ripples on the water under the afternoon sun. 43 years of motherhood resonated with every step. First words, scraped knees, college applications, wedding toasts, everything leading to this moment of clarity. We do not need your opinion, Mom, just your checkbook. I had always believed love meant sacrifice without recognition. But as I watched a ferry cross the Willamette, I wondered if I had confused selflessness with complacency. Marcia's firm occupied the 5th floor of a renovated brick building in the Pearl District. Her assistant led me to a small conference room where sunlight streamed through high windows. I declined coffee, though my mouth was dry. Barbara, Marcia said as she entered, her silver hair swinging efficiently. We'd been friends since our 30s, when she handled Richard's life insurance after his heart attack. This is unexpected. Her message said it was urgent. I need to change my will, I said simply. Marcia sat opposite me, her expression shifting to professional concern. Okay, what changes are we discussing? I want to remove Melanie completely, I said, the words surprisingly easy to speak aloud, and leave everything to Jasmine instead. Marcia raised her eyebrows, pulled out a notepad, but did not write immediately. That is significant. May I ask what prompted this? Things have been deteriorating for years, I said, gazing at the Portland skyline. I have ignored it. I have made excuses. Today, Melanie made it clear to me that my only value to the family is financial. I recounted the conversation at lunch, keeping my voice steady even though the wound was still fresh. Marcia listened without interruption, her face expressing what I would not allow mine to show. I see, she said when I finished. And are you sure this is not a decision made in the heat of the moment? These things can sometimes... I have subsidized my daughter's life for decades, I said. I paid for her education, the start of her business, the down payment on her house. I have been generous because I believed in supporting her dreams, but I will not allow myself to be stripped of my dignity along with my savings. Marcia studied me for a moment. We had known each other so long I recognized her assessment, not of my legal right to change the will, but of my emotional state. You understand this will likely cause a major rift in your relationship, she said carefully. The rift already exists, I replied. I am simply acknowledging it. Melanie has made it clear my only value is monetary. She does not respect me as a mother, as a scholar, or even as a person with valid perspectives. I no longer wish to reward that behavior. Marcia nodded slowly. And Jasmine? Tell me about her. My expression softened. She is different, thoughtful. She values substance over appearance. She is finding her own path in design, incorporating traditional techniques with modern applications. She listens to me when I speak. She asks questions about my research, my experiences. Does she know anything about this decision? No, I said firmly, and I do not want her to know until it is necessary. We both understood what I meant. Until after my death. Very well. Marcia pulled out her laptop. Let me prepare the paperwork. It will take about an hour. Are you comfortable waiting? I have nowhere else to be, I replied. While Marcia worked in her office, I sat alone with my thoughts. Outside the window, the city continued its Sunday afternoon rhythm. People walking dogs, couples holding hands, a street musician playing saxophone on the corner. I thought about Melanie as a little girl, holding my hand tight as we crossed streets. When had she started pulling away? When had her gaze turned cold? My phone buzzed with incoming messages, 3 from Jasmine. Grandma, are you okay? I'm so sorry about Mom. She crossed the line. Please call me when you can. 1 from Kevin. Barbara, I apologize for what happened. Melanie is upset, but she won't admit it. Please call me when you are ready to talk. Nothing from Melanie. I placed the phone face down without answering. For once, I would act instead of react. Marcia returned with several documents explaining each one methodically. This revokes all previous wills and establishes the new one. Your estate, the house, investments, retirement accounts, and personal property will pass to Jasmine Eleanor Ellison upon your death. And nothing to Melanie? I confirmed. Nothing, Marcia stated, although a clause has been included explicitly acknowledging her as your daughter and stating that the omission is intentional, not an oversight. This helps protect the will against challenges. Could she challenge it? She could try, Marcia said. Anyone can file a lawsuit, but Oregon law gives testators broad freedom to distribute their assets as they wish. As long as you are of sound mind, which you clearly are, and not under undue influence, the will should stand. I read every page carefully, the academic in me unwilling to sign anything without thorough examination. The legal language transformed the work and assets of my life into clinical terms: real estate, personal effects, financial instruments. My existence reduced to possessions that would outlive me. However, reaching the signature page, I felt strangely relieved. For too long, I had enabled Melanie's entitlement. This document represented a boundary I should have set years ago. "Before you sign," Marcia said, "I want to ask you one more time if you are sure. Family estrangements can be very painful." I looked her straight in the eye. "The pain already exists, Marcia. I simply refuse to pretend otherwise." She nodded and called in her assistant and another staff member to serve as witnesses. I felt the pen heavy in my hand, loaded with consequence, as I signed every page with deliberate care. "Now what?" I asked when we finished. "The original stays in our fireproof safe," Marcia explained. "You will take a copy home. I recommend you keep it somewhere safe but accessible to Jasmine in case you pass away." "And what about notification?" I asked, not entirely sure what I was asking. Marcia understood. "You are not obligated to communicate this change to Melanie. It is entirely your decision." I nodded, suddenly tired. "I think I will let the document speak for itself when the time comes." "And when will that be?" Marcia asked gently. I thought for a moment. "I would like you to organize a family meeting in 3 weeks. Tell them it is about estate planning and future arrangements, which is true. I want everyone there. Melanie, Kevin, Jasmine. As your lawyer, I must warn you that surprising them this way could heighten tensions," Marcia warned. "I am not doing this for drama, Marcia," I said softly. "But after decades of silent accommodation, I need them to understand that my decisions have consequences. Even if they do not value my opinions, they will have to acknowledge my actions." When I left the office, with the copy of the will tucked safely in my purse, the Portland spring sun had disappeared behind clouds. Perfect, I thought. The weather had aligned with my mood. I checked my phone again. 2 more messages from Jasmine, increasingly worried. One from Kevin saying Melanie was processing. Still nothing direct from my daughter. Instead of going home, I drove to the university campus where I had spent 3 decades teaching. On Sunday afternoon, the grounds were quiet. I walked the familiar paths, nodding to the occasional student or colleague. Outside the linguistics building, where my name still appeared on the department website as Professor Emeritus, I sat on a bench under a cherry blossom tree. I remembered bringing Melanie here as a child, letting her play in my office while I prepared lectures. She was proud then, telling her friends her mom was important at the university. When had that pride turned into disdain? I pulled out my phone and finally replied to Jasmine. "I am fine, dear. I am taking some time. We will talk. I love you." To Kevin, "You do not need to apologize. You did not say those words." To Melanie, I wrote and deleted 3 different messages before putting the phone away without sending anything. What could I say? "You hurt me?" She knew and didn't care. I changed my will? That would only confirm her belief that I was nothing more than financial support. No, silence would speak for me now. The will would be my final statement in a conversation that had been about me for too long. Rain began to fall lightly as I walked back to my car. By the time I got home, it was pouring. The spring downpour washing away all the morning's pretenses, leaving only the truth behind. I placed the will in my desk drawer, under the folder containing Jasmine's childhood drawings. Then I sat in my reading chair, watching raindrops race down the window pane, and waited for the storm inside me to pass. 3 weeks passed in a haze of deliberate routine. I watered plants on schedule, attended my book club, and prepared lectures for the course I taught every spring at the community college. On the surface, everything seemed normal. Deep down, tectonic plates were shifting. Melanie called twice. The first time she left a voicemail that managed to be both apologetic and defensive. "Mom, I think you misunderstood what I was trying to say at lunch. I was stressed about work. Call me." The second call came 3 days later. "Mom, seriously, you were being childish. It was not a big deal." I did not return either call. For the first time in our relationship, I did not rush to smooth things over, to hide the pain. The silence between us went from awkward to familiar. Kevin texted occasionally with neutral news about his life. A dinner with a client, a neighborhood party, the weather. I replied with equal politeness and brevity. We were performing a pantomime of normalcy, and I discovered I had a talent for the role. Jasmine was different. She came to visit me twice, bringing coffee and sitting in my kitchen with genuine concern in her eyes. "Grandma, are you really okay?" she asked during her second visit, watching me arrange tulips in a vase. "I am fine, honey." I trimmed a stem with precision, just reconsidering a few things. "Mom feels terrible," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. I raised an eyebrow. "Did she tell you that?" Jasmine looked down at her coffee. "Not exactly. She said you are being hypersensitive and that eventually you will get over it." I placed another tulip in the arrangement. "And what do you think?" "I think it was cruel," Jasmine said simply. "And I think she has been cruel for longer than I realized, only I never saw it clearly until that day." I reached out and squeezed her hand. "Relationships change as we grow. Sometimes we see people more clearly from a distance." "Are you going to forgive her?" Jasmine asked. I considered the question carefully. "Forgiveness is not the issue. The issue is understanding. Your mother and I need to understand each other's boundaries better." Jasmine nodded, though I could tell she did not quite understand what I meant. How could she? She knew nothing about the will. 1 week before my estate planning meeting, Melanie finally appeared at my door unannounced. She was as impeccable as always. Cashmere sweater, designer jeans, hair freshly styled. She carried a small gift bag. "Mom," she said with a tight smile, "enough is enough. I have come to make peace." I let her in and offered tea, which she declined. We sat in the living room, afternoon light filtering through lace curtains I had owned since before she was born. "I brought you something," she said, pushing the gift bag toward me. Inside was an expensive bottle of perfume. "It is from that French boutique you like." "Thank you," I said, setting it aside unopened. "That is thoughtful. So we are good now, right?" "Component placement," she asked, crossing her legs. I said something thoughtless. "You ignored me, and now we can move on." I studied my daughter's face, so like mine in structure, but somehow harder, more calculating. "Is that what you think happened?" She sighed dramatically. "Mom, I was stressed about hosting. I said something I did not mean. Why are you dragging this out?" "Did you mean it?" I asked softly. "What?" "When you said you only needed my checkbook, not my opinions. Did you mean it?" Melanie shifted uncomfortably. "Of course not. It was just a moment of frustration." "Truth often surfaces in moments of frustration," I observed. "Why are you being like this?" Melanie's voice took on that familiar tone. "I came to apologize." "Did you?" I looked around pointedly. "I have not actually heard an apology." Her cheeks flushed. "Okay, I am sorry if what I said hurt your feelings, but you have to admit, Mom, sometimes you offer outdated advice. The world has changed since your time. Again, your time." As if my relevance had expired along with my youth. "The fundamentals of respect have not changed," I said firmly. "Did you tell Jasmine about the meeting at Marcia's office next week?" The abrupt change of subject threw her off. "Yes, but what does that have to do with—" "Just checking," I interrupted. "It is important that everyone attends." "Is everything okay?" A flicker of worry crossed her face. "You are not sick, are you?" "I am perfectly healthy," I assured her. "Just putting my affairs in order. It is what responsible people my age do." Melanie visibly relaxed. "Good. For a moment I thought—" She stopped without finishing the sentence, but I heard the unspoken thought. For a moment, I thought I might lose my inheritance before I had a chance to smooth things over. "Kevin told me you are planning a trip to Europe this summer," I told her, changing the subject again. "Yes, we are thinking Italy, 3 weeks." Her eyes lit up with genuine enthusiasm. "The Amalfi Coast, then Tuscany. Kevin has been working hard and I need inspiration for the business." "Sounds wonderful," I said sincerely. "You will have a great time." "You have been there, right? During your sabbatical?" I nodded. Surprised, she remembered. Yes, I spent a month in Florence researching Renaissance textile patterns. The craftsmanship was extraordinary. For a moment, we connected through this shared interest, perhaps the first authentic exchange we had had in years. Then her phone rang and the moment broke. "It is the office," she said, checking the screen. "I should take this." She stepped into the hall, her voice shifting to her professional register. When she returned, she was already gathering her purse. "Sorry, Mom, client emergency, I have to go back." "Of course," I said, rising to walk her to the door. "Thanks for coming. So, are we good?" Melanie asked again, hand on the doorknob. "I will see you at Marcia's office," I said, neither confirming nor denying. Melanie hesitated, perhaps sensing the evasion, then leaned in to kiss my cheek. "Try the perfume. It is what all the women in Paris are wearing now." When she left, I put the unopened bottle in the bathroom cabinet. Then I called Marcia to confirm preparations for our meeting. "Is everything ready?" she assured me. I told them it is about updating your estate plan and advanced directives. Nothing alarming, just standard planning. "And do you have the documents ready?" I asked. "All set," she confirmed. "Barbara, are you still sure about this? Family wounds can heal with time." "Some wounds reveal truths we have been avoiding," I replied. "I am not doing this out of spite, Marcia. I am doing it because I finally understand what is needed." "Very well," she said. "I will see you Wednesday at 2. That night, I dreamed of Richard. We were walking in our old garden, the one at our first house where Melanie took her first steps. In the dream, he looked the way he did at 40, dark hair barely touched by gray, laugh lines around his eyes. "What do you think of what I am doing?" I asked him in the dream. He smiled that crooked smile I still missed after all these years. "I would think you finally learned what I always knew." "What is that?" I asked. "That being kind does not mean being a doormat," he said, reaching out to touch a blooming rose. "You taught Melanie many things, Barbara, but you never taught her that your love had limits." I woke up with tears on my cheeks, but with a curious sense of peace in my heart. The dream. Richard was right. I had never set limits with Melanie. I had never shown her that respect was just as essential as love. Tuesday afternoon, the night before the meeting, Jasmine called. "Grandma, is everything okay? Mom seems nervous about tomorrow." "Everything is fine," I assured her. "Just updating some paperwork." "She asked me if we have been talking about her," Jasmine said. "She thinks you have been poisoning the well against her." I sighed. "That sounds like your mother, always looking for external culprits." "I told her we mostly talk about my design work," Jasmine said. "It is true, is it not? We have not talked much about her." "It is true," I confirmed. "Your work is much more interesting than family drama." Jasmine laughed, then grew serious again. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, honey," I said, an unexpected lump in my throat. "More than you know." After hanging up, I sat in my study reviewing the copy of my will. One more time. The legal language was dispassionate, but the intent was clear. Everything I owned, my Eastmoreland home, my retirement accounts, my collection of rare linguistic texts, the antique jewelry inherited from my grandmother, it would all go to Jasmine. Melanie would receive nothing, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. I closed the folder and looked at the photograph on my desk, Richard holding newborn Melanie, his face lit with wonder. "I hope I am doing the right thing," I whispered to his image. In the silence of my empty house, I could almost hear his reply. "You always do, Barbara, even when it is hard." Wednesday arrived with perfect clarity, a spring day of such startling beauty it seemed almost deliberate. I dressed carefully in a charcoal suit I reserved for special occasions. I clasped my grandmother's pearl earrings and the simple gold watch Richard had given me for our 10th anniversary. Nothing flashy, but all substantial. As I drove downtown, I felt strangely calm. Regardless of the storm that was coming, I had made my decision with clear purpose, not out of a wounded impulse. Marcia's firm occupied the 5th floor of the historic Wickman building. The brass elevator doors opened to reveal a reception area of understated elegance. The receptionist greeted me by name and led me to Marcia's private conference room, where she was arranging documents on a polished oak table. "You are early," she said, looking up. "I wanted a moment to center myself." I admitted. She squeezed my arm gently. "I have arranged everything as we discussed. Copies of the documents are ready, and there is water and coffee service. Are you still comfortable with this approach?" I nodded. "Completely? Your family should be here in about 15 minutes. Do you want to wait here or in my office?" "Here is fine," I said, taking the seat at the head of the table. "I would like to gather my thoughts." When Marcia left, I sat alone in the quiet room. From the windows, I could see Mount Hood in the distance, its snowy peak gleaming against the blue sky. Below spread Portland, the city where I had raised my daughters, built my career, and buried my husband, the geography of my life. At 2 o'clock sharp, the receptionist ushered my family in. Melanie entered first, dressed in a cream blazer and silk blouse, her professional armor. She was followed by Kevin in a blue suit that suggested he came straight from his office. Jasmine entered last, looking a bit uncomfortable in a simple black dress, hair in a ponytail. "Mom?" Melanie said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. "You look good." Her tone suggested surprise, as if she expected to find me diminished somehow. "Thank you," I replied. "Please, everyone sit down. Marcia will join us in a moment." They arranged themselves around the table, Melanie and Kevin on one side, Jasmine on the other, a perfect tableau of our family dynamic. "What is this all about?" Melanie asked, voice light but eyes watchful. "Your message said estate planning, but clearly you are not sick, thank God." "Just being prudent," I said. "At my age, it is important to have everything in order." "Smart," Kevin nodded. "My parents just updated their wills, too. It gives everyone peace of mind." "Exactly," I agreed, looking directly at him. Kevin was not unkind, merely passive. He had never contradicted Melanie in my presence, even when she had gone too far. I wondered if he did so in private. Marcia entered then, followed by her assistant carrying a folder of documents. "Thank you all for coming," she said, taking the seat next to me. "Mrs. Ellison has asked me to review some important updates to her estate plan with all of you present." "Is that really necessary?" Melanie asked, checking her watch. "Could she not have just sent us the documents to review?" "The matters we are discussing today benefit from in-person clarification," Marcia replied smoothly. "And as your mother's attorney, I follow her instructions on how these matters should be handled." Melanie pursed her lips slightly but nodded. "Before we begin," Marcia continued, "I want to confirm that everyone present understands their relationship to Mrs. Ellison." "Melanie Ellison, you are Barbara's daughter, correct?" "Obviously," Melanie said with a small laugh. "Kevin Baxter, you are Melanie's husband and Barbara's son-in-law." "Yes," Kevin nodded. "And Jasmine Ellison, you are Barbara's granddaughter, the daughter of Melanie and Kevin?" "Yes," Jasmine said. Her eyes darted curiously between Marcia and me. "Thank you," Marcia said, opening her folder. "I will now review Barbara's updated will, which she executed 3 weeks ago, superseding all previous versions." I watched Melanie's face. I saw her eyes narrow as she registered the date. 3 weeks ago? Right after the Mother's Day brunch. "The document begins with standard legal language stating that Barbara is of sound mind and acting voluntarily," Marcia continued. "Section 1 covers personal possessions and residence." She read the formal language in an even professional tone. I did not lose sight of my family. Kevin looked attentive but relaxed. Jasmine looked puzzled, and Melanie maintained a carefully neutral expression. None of them had realized yet what was coming. "Regarding the distribution of assets," Marcia said, turning a page, "Barbara has directed that her entire estate, including real property, financial holdings, personal possessions, and all other assets, pass in their entirety to her granddaughter, Jasmine Eleanor Ellison. The room went completely still. Jasmine's jaw dropped. Kevin raised his eyebrows, but it was Melanie's face I watched most closely. The way her expression froze, crumpled, and hardened in rapid succession. "There must be some mistake," she said finally, voice tight. "You skipped a section." "There is no mistake," Marcia replied calmly. "Section 3 explicitly states, 'I have made no provision for my daughter, Melanie Catherine Ellison, not out of oversight or error, but as a deliberate choice.'" "This is ridiculous," Melanie said, color rising in her cheeks. "Mom, what is this?" I looked straight at her. "It is exactly what it sounds like, Melanie. I have decided to leave my estate to Jasmine." "But why?" she demanded, voice rising. "Because of a comment at lunch? Are you seriously that petty?" "It was not one comment," I said quietly. "It was decades of disrespect culminating in that moment of total clarity. You made it very clear that my only value to you is financial, so I have made a financial decision in response." "Grandma," Jasmine intervened, face pale. "I do not understand. I never asked for this." "I know you did not, dear," I said gently. "This is not about you asking. It is about recognizing who truly values what I have to offer. My knowledge, my experience, my perspective, not just my checkbook." "This is insane." Melanie's voice had risen to nearly a shout. "I am your daughter, your only daughter." "Yes," I acknowledged, "and I have supported you your entire life, your education, your business, your home. I have given generously and gladly, but I will not leave my legacy to someone who does not see me as anything more than a financial resource." Kevin put a hand on Melanie's arm. "Let's stay calm. I am sure we can—" "Do not tell me to be calm," Melanie snapped, shaking him off. "My mother is disinheriting me over a simple, thoughtless comment." "Do you really think that is what this is about?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "A comment?" "What else could it be?" she demanded. "Maybe the years of dismissing my experience as outdated," I suggested, "interrupting me every time I speak, calling my research dusty and irrelevant, teaching Jasmine that my advice is not worth considering." "That is not fair," Melanie protested. "I have always respected you." "No," I interrupted, surprising even myself with my firmness. "You have not." And that moment at brunch did nothing but confirm what I have suspected for years. You see me as a financial resource, not a mother with valuable wisdom to impart. "Mrs. Ellison," Marcia intervened gently, "would you like me to continue with the document?" I nodded, grateful for her professional detachment. As Marcia continued reading the technical aspects of the will, I watched the emotions on my family's faces. Jasmine looked overwhelmed, glancing between her mother and me. Kevin looked deeply uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. And Melanie, my daughter, my only daughter, stared at me with a mixture of shock, rage, and something else. Maybe betrayal or recognition. "That concludes the summary of the document," Marcia said finally. "Are there any questions regarding the technical aspects of the will?" "Yes," Melanie said, her voice controlled now, icy. "Is it legal?" "Completely," Marcia confirmed. "Under Oregon law, a testator has the right to distribute their assets as they see fit, provided they are of sound mind and not under duress." "And you have verified her sanity?" Melanie asked, putting air quotes around the phrase. "I have," Marcia said firmly, as did a second attorney who reviewed the document and witnessed her signature. Melanie turned to me, eyes glittering. "So this is your revenge for one bad day?" "It is not revenge," I said calmly. "It is a consequence. And it was not one bad day, Melanie. It was the culmination of years of disrespect." "I cannot believe this," she said, standing up abruptly. "After everything I have done for you." I raised an eyebrow. "Everything you have done for me?" She faltered slightly, then recovered. "Yes. Who drives you to doctor appointments? Who helped you set up your new computer? Who invites you on holidays?" "Kevin drives me to appointments," I said quietly. "Jasmine set up my computer. And holiday invitations are not generosity when they are followed by criticism of my clothes, my opinions, and my very existence. This is so unfair, she insisted, grabbing her purse. Kevin, we are leaving. Clearly my mother has lost her mind, and I am not going to sit here and be humiliated. Kevin hesitated, looking between his wife and me. Go ahead, I said gently. We can talk another time, Kevin. He stood up reluctantly. Barbara, I hope you will reconsider. Family should be treated with respect, I finished for him. That is non-negotiable. Melanie was already at the door. Jasmine, are you coming? She demanded. Jasmine looked at me, eyes wide and uncertain. Grandma, I do not know what to say. You do not have to say anything right now, I assured her. We can talk later. Go with your parents for now. She stood up slowly, still stunned. Are you sure? I nodded. I am sure. This is not about putting you in the middle, Jasmine. It is about making things right. As they walked out, Melanie turned at the door. This is not over, she said, voice shaking with anger. You will regret this, Mom. When they were gone, the conference room fell silent. Marcia gathered her papers without comment, respecting my need for quiet contemplation. Well, I said finally, that went about as expected. You handled it with remarkable composure, Marcia observed. Are you okay? I am, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. For the first time in years, I think I really am. Driving home in the golden late afternoon light, I felt lighter. Not triumphant, for there is no victory in causing pain, even when necessary, but vindicated. The truth had finally been spoken aloud, and however painful, the truth carried its own kind of peace. My phone rang several times that evening. Twice from Jasmine, once from Kevin. I let them go to voicemail. I needed time to process. Melanie did not call. I slept surprisingly well that night, and by morning I felt ready for whatever storm might come. The hard part was over. The will had been read. The silence had been broken. Now we would all have to live with the truth. The days following the meeting unfolded like a play where everyone had forgotten their lines. My phone alternated between explosive activity and ominous silence. Melanie's approach was predictable. She left one scathing voicemail accusing me of elderly hysteria before employing total radio silence. Kevin sent text messages occasionally, digitally apologetic but non-committal. Jasmine's communications were the most complex. Anxious texts followed by 2 handwritten letters that arrived in my mailbox, elegant script filling pages with questions and confessions. I responded to everyone with the same measured calm I had maintained in Marcia's office. To Kevin's tentative outreach, I replied with brief assurances that I harbored no ill will toward him personally. To Jasmine's letters, I wrote careful responses clarifying my intentions without pressuring her to choose a side. To Melanie's silence, I offered the same silence in return. 1 week after the reading, my doorbell rang on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. I opened it to find Kevin standing there, suit slightly damp, expression tentative. Barbara, he said, I hope I'm not bothering you. Not at all, I replied, stepping back to let him in. Tea? That would be nice. He followed me to the kitchen, his lanky frame too big for my modest rooms. Melanie does not know I am here. I assumed as much, I said, filling the kettle. How is she? Kevin ran a hand through his thinning hair. Angry, hurt, confused. She's been consulting with lawyers. I nodded, unsurprised. And what did they tell her? That it is unlikely she can successfully contest the will, he admitted, but she is determined to try. That sounds like Melanie, I said, placing cups on a tray. She rarely accepts limitations gracefully. Kevin's laugh was hollow. That is an understatement. He hesitated, then added, she is also facing some professional challenges. The agency lost 2 major clients last month. I absorbed the information without comment. While I took no pleasure in Melanie's difficulties, I also recognized that it was not my responsibility to solve them. a revelation that still felt novel after decades of maternal intervention. "Barbara," Kevin said as I poured the tea, "I did not speak up at that lunch. I should have." "Yes," I accepted simply. "You should have." He flinched slightly at my candor. "I have never been good at confrontation." "Few are," I admitted, "but sometimes silence is its own form of cruelty." We sipped our tea, the rain drumming against the windows, providing a gentle soundtrack to our awkward conversation. "I am not here to ask you to change your mind," Kevin said finally. "I understand why you made your decision." "Do you?" I asked with genuine curiosity. He nodded slowly. "Better than you think. I have watched how Melanie treats you for years. I have tried to talk to her, but—" He trailed off. "But she dismisses your concerns?" I finished for him. "Just like she dismisses mine?" "Yes." His admission seemed to deflate him somehow. "The thing is, Barbara, I love her, despite everything." "I do too," I said softly. "Love has never been the problem." "Then what is the problem?" he asked, leaning forward. "Because Melanie thinks this is about punishment." I considered my answer carefully. "It is about consequences, Kevin, not punishment. There is a difference. Throughout her adult life, Melanie has treated me with increasing contempt, secure in the knowledge that it would never affect her materially. Now she understands otherwise. But to cut her out completely, it reflects exactly how she has treated me," I interrupted gently. "She has cut me out completely as a person with a valuable perspective. She has reduced me to a financial resource. I am responding in kind." Kevin studied his teacup. "And Jasmine? She feels caught in the middle." "I know," I acknowledged. "That was never my intention. I chose Jasmine as my heir because she has shown me genuine respect and interest, not because I wanted to create division." "But you have," he pointed out, "created division." "No," I corrected. "I have exposed a division that already existed. There is a difference." We finished our tea in thoughtful silence. As Kevin prepared to leave, he paused at the door. "Melanie is planning the trip to Europe for July," he said. 3 weeks in Italy. She says we need it now more than ever." I nodded, remembering my daughter's enthusiasm for the Amalfi Coast. "I hope you both enjoy it." "It is going to strain our finances," he admitted, "especially with the business troubles. She was counting on, well, my contribution." I finished for him. He had the grace to look embarrassed. "Yes. Maybe that illustrates my point better than anything I could say," I observed. When Kevin left, I sat in my study contemplating our conversation. I felt no satisfaction in my daughter's difficulties, but neither did I feel responsible for fixing them. For the first time in our relationship, I was allowing Melanie to experience the natural consequences of her behavior. It was not punishment. It was simply reality. The next day, Jasmine called and asked if she could visit. She arrived looking tired, her usual vitality dimmed by family tensions. "Mom is thinking about contesting the will," she told me without preamble as she sat at my kitchen table. "She has consulted 3 different lawyers." "I expected as much," I replied, pouring her a glass of iced tea. "They all told her she would probably lose," Jasmine continued. "But she has convinced herself that you were not in your right mind when you made the changes." I smiled faintly. "Your mother has always been skilled at reshaping reality to match her preferences." "Grandma," Jasmine said, lowering her voice to almost a whisper, "I do not want your money." I reached across the table to cover her hand with mine. "It is not about money, Jasmine. It is about recognizing your worth." "But I feel bad," she insisted. "I have not done anything to deserve this." "Have you not?" I asked. "You have shown me respect. You have valued my experiences and perspectives. You have treated me like a whole person, not just a financial resource. In my book, that deserves recognition." She shook her head, worried. "But it is causing so much pain. Dad says Mom barely sleeps. She cries, then gets angry, then tries to pretend everything is fine. And how are you handling it? I asked gently. I feel torn, she admitted. I understand why you did it. I even think Mom deserved a wake-up call. But this feels so final. It does not have to be, I told her. A will can be changed again if circumstances warrant it. Hope flashed in her eyes. So if Mom apologizes? Really apologizes? It would be a start, I acknowledged. But real change requires more than words, Jasmine. It requires sustained behavior that demonstrates true understanding. She nodded slowly. That is fair. But at least you will consider it, if she makes a real effort. Whoa, I will always consider any genuine attempt at reconciliation, I promised. I did not make this decision lightly, and I will not hold on to it just out of stubbornness. Jasmine seemed relieved by this assurance. We spent the rest of her visit talking about her design projects, deliberately steering away from family tensions. As she prepared to leave, she hugged me tightly. I am sorry for what is happening, she whispered, but I am not sorry you stood up for yourself, Grandma. Her words stayed with me long after she left. Standing up for myself, a concept so simple it had taken 71 years to fully embrace. What would my life have been like if I had done it sooner? What example would I have set for Melanie? 2 days later, I received a formal letter from a lawyer representing Melanie. It explained her intention to contest the will based on undue influence and lack of capacity. I sent it to Marcia, who responded with professional calm. It is a standard posture, she assured me over the phone. The letter contains no strong legal arguments, just threats designed to intimidate you into changing your mind voluntarily. And if it goes to court? I asked. Then we present the documentation of your mental competence, the consistent pattern of disrespect from Melanie, and the reasonable nature of your decision to leave your estate to someone who values your wisdom as well as your assets. Marcia replied. Barbara, you are on solid legal ground. I thanked her and hung up, feeling strangely detached from the legal maneuvering. The battle had moved from emotions to the realm of paperwork and legal strategies. There was something almost peaceful about that transition. That night, I received an unexpected message from Kevin. Italy trip canceled. Too stressed to plan. Lost another client today. I did not reply immediately. I did not know what reaction he was seeking. Was he trying to make me feel guilty, sympathy, or just keeping me informed? After careful thought, I replied simply, Sorry to hear that. Hope things improve soon. His response was immediate. She is struggling more than she admits. Pride won't let her reach out. This time I did not reply at all. If Melanie wanted reconciliation, it would have to come from her directly, not through Kevin's diplomatic channels. June turned into July with the characteristic summer beauty of Portland. I tended my garden, met friends for lunch, and continued my classes at the community college. Life flowed with a normalcy that felt ordinary and revolutionary at the same time. I lived without the weight of Melanie's expectations, without the constant obligation to provide financial or emotional support, despite her dismissal of my personhood. It was not exactly happiness. There was too much unresolved pain for that. But it was a kind of peace, the peace that comes when you finally speak your truth, regardless of the consequences. And as summer flowers bloomed in my garden, I began to feel something else taking root alongside that peace. Hope. Not to return to the old ways that were irrevocably broken, but in the possibility of something new and perhaps more authentic between us, something based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Whether that hope would bloom or wither remained to see. But for the first time in our relationship, I was willing to wait and see what Melanie decided to cultivate. August arrived with its particular Portland glory. Clear skies, moderate temperatures, and gardens bursting with life. My roses had never looked better, and I spent quiet mornings tending to them, finding metaphors in their growth that might have seemed heavy-handed in a novel, but felt profound in real life. Some needed pruning to thrive. Others needed distance from competing plants. All needed care and space. It had been almost 3 months since the reading of the will. The formal legal challenges from Melanie's lawyer had faded after Marcia provided comprehensive documentation regarding my mental competence and the deliberate nature of my decision. According to Jasmine, who had become my primary family contact, Melanie had grudgingly accepted the legal reality, though she maintained her emotional grievance. "Is she telling everyone you had some kind of nervous breakdown?" Jasmine reported during one of our weekly lunches. "Or that you have fallen under bad influences, though she does not quite know who that might be?" I smiled faintly. It is easier than accepting that I have simply had enough. "Dad says the business is really struggling," Jasmine continued, pushing salad around her plate. "They have lost 4 major clients in 3 months. Mom is not sleeping well." I nodded, absorbing the information without comment. While I took no pleasure in Melanie's difficulties, I recognized that it was not my place to solve them. "Are you not going to ask why they are losing clients?" Jasmine asked, studying my face. "Would knowing change my position?" I asked gently. Jasmine thought about it. "Probably not, but do you not care?" "Of course I care," I said. "I will always care about your mother's well-being. But caring does not obligate me to rescue her from consequences, especially when those consequences stem from her own choices." "What do you mean?" Jasmine frowned. "Did she mention why the clients are leaving?" I asked. "Something about creative differences and budget cuts." Jasmine shrugged. "Typical business excuses." "Or perhaps," I suggested carefully, "they are experiencing the same treatment I received. Dismissal, disrespect, devaluation." Jasmine went quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I have seen how she treats her staff. It is not, well, especially when she is stressed." "Patterns repeat," I said simply. 2 days later, I received a text from Kevin. "Melanie wants to see you. Can we get coffee tomorrow?" I considered the request carefully. Was I ready for this conversation? What would a satisfactory outcome look like? After reflection, I replied, "Yes. Suggest Driftwood Cafe at 10 a.m. I chose the location deliberately, a quiet coffee shop near the university where Melanie and I had met occasionally during her college years. It held memories of a more balanced time in our relationship, before her success had calcified into superiority. I arrived 15 minutes early and chose a corner table that offered privacy and a clear view of the entrance. Precisely at 10 a.m., Melanie walked in. She was thinner than I remembered. Her usually perfect appearance was slightly frayed. Hair styled with less precision, makeup applied less flawlessly. "Mom," she said, sitting across from me. Her voice held neither warmth nor hostility, but a careful neutrality. "Melanie," I replied with the same measured tone, "do you want coffee?" "I already ordered at the counter. Thanks." We sat in awkward silence until her latte arrived. She wrapped her hands around the cup, as if seeking warmth despite the summer day. "I guess you know why I wanted to meet," she said finally. "I have some ideas," I acknowledged, "but I would prefer to hear your perspective." She took a sip of her latte, steadying herself. "The business is in trouble. We have lost several major clients. The economy is in crisis, and marketing budgets are usually the first to be cut." I nodded, waiting for her to continue. "Kevin and I are thinking about downsizing the company. Our mortgage is substantial, and without the anticipated inheritance," I filled in when she hesitated. "Yes." Her cheeks flushed slightly. "Without that, and with the business issues, we are facing difficult decisions." "I see," I said. "And you are here because—" "Because I need your help, Mom," she said, a note of frustration slipping into her voice. "Is it not obvious what kind of help you are looking for?" I asked with a deliberate tone. "Financial," she admitted, not meeting my eyes. "A loan or an advance on what would have been my inheritance." "I see," I said again. "And is that all you wanted to discuss today?" Her eyes locked onto mine. What else could there be? The moment crystallized everything that had brought us here. Her total inability to recognize that reconciliation might require something more than a financial negotiation, that relationships themselves had value beyond material support. Perhaps an acknowledgement of what brought us here, I suggested quietly, or reflections on our relationship beyond its financial dimensions. You mean you want an apology, she said flatly, for what I said at brunch? That would be a start, I acknowledged. But more importantly, I would want you to recognize that the comment reflected a pattern, not an isolated incident. Melanie sighed heavily. Okay, I am sorry I said what I said. It was thoughtless and hurtful. I was stressed about hosting and I took it out on you. Is that what you need to hear? What I need, I said carefully, is to know that you see me as a whole person, Melanie. Not just as a financial resource or an outdated relic, but as someone with value beyond what I can give you materially. Of course I see you as a person, she said with evident exasperation. You are my mother. Being your mother is a relationship, not an acknowledgement of my worth, I pointed out. How have you shown that you value my perspectives, my experiences, my knowledge? She looked genuinely confused. What does all that have to do with the will? Everything, I said simply. It has everything to do with it. We sat in silence while she processed this, an expression oscillating between confusion, frustration, and finally, a glimmer of understanding. So this isn't about money, she said slowly. It is about respect? Yes, I confirmed. It always has been. But you changed your entire estate plan because you felt disrespected, she argued. That seems extreme. Does it? I asked. You have systematically dismissed my relevance in every area except financial support. I have simply aligned my estate plan with the relationship you have decided to cultivate. Another silence fell between us, deeper than before. Around us, the coffee shop continued its morning rhythm. Students typing on laptops, professors grading papers, baristas calling out orders. Life went on normally while our small drama of recognition played out in a corner. I do not know how to fix this, Melanie admitted finally, voice quieter than I had heard in years. That is an honest start, I acknowledged. Maybe you should start by asking yourself what kind of relationship you want to have with me, beyond financial support. She hesitated. She seemed to be searching for words that were not practiced or performative. I want things to go back to normal. Normal was not working, I said gently. Normal was me accepting dismissal in exchange for being included in your life. Normal was financial support without reciprocal respect. She looked down at her half-empty cup. I do not know how to be different. That is something only you can determine, I told her. But I would start with genuine curiosity about who I am, beyond being your mother. Interest in my thoughts not because you are obligated to hear them, but because you recognize they might have value. And if I do that, she asked, will you change the will back? I shook my head slowly. It does not work like that, Melanie. Reconciliation is not a transaction. The will may change as our relationship evolves. But it cannot be the goal of reconciliation. She looked frustrated again. So I have no guarantees. I could work on all this emotional stuff and still get nothing. If nothing is how you categorize a healthier relationship with your mother, then perhaps we have even more work to do than I thought, I observed. Our conversation ended shortly after, without any concrete resolution. Melanie left promising to think about everything, though her expression suggested she was still more worried about financial solutions than relational ones. 2 weeks later, Jasmine called me with unexpected news. Mom started therapy, she told me, surprise evident in her voice. Twice a week. She won't admit it is because of your conversation, but Dad says it is. That is a positive step, I said, genuinely pleased, for her own well-being. And, Jasmine continued, She asked me for help with the business, specifically with client relations. She says I have better people skills. I smiled at this indirect acknowledgement of Melanie's interpersonal limitations. Sounds like a good opportunity for both of you. There is something else, Jasmine said. Her voice turned serious. I have been thinking a lot about your offer to help create that scholarship fund for non-traditional linguistics students. I would like to help make that happen. Are you sure? I asked. It would mean using part of what will eventually be your inheritance. I am sure, she said firmly. It is important to honor your legacy, Grandma. The real legacy, not just the financial one. 2 days later, Jasmine arrived at my house with a laptop and a notebook, ready to work on the scholarship foundation. We spent the afternoon drafting mission statements, eligibility requirements, and application processes. It was the most energized I had felt in months, maybe years. My academic knowledge and Jasmine's fresh perspective, creating something meaningful together. As autumn approached, bringing the first touches of color to Portland's abundant trees, small changes occurred in my family constellation. Melanie began texting me occasionally, brief at first, but gradually more substantive. Not apologies, but questions about my research, my opinion on a book she had read, my advice on a staff conflict she was resolving. I answered each question carefully, neither withholding nor overwhelming. Our exchanges remained cautious, like dancers relearning a forgotten choreography, but there was movement where before there had only been static positions. In late September, I received an unexpected package from Melanie. Inside was a framed photograph I had never seen before. Richard holding newborn Melanie, with me beside him, face illuminated by overflowing joy. Attached was a simple note. Found this while cleaning out storage. Thought you might like it. P.S. I started reading your book on indigenous textile patterns. There is a lot I did not know. Or it was not a reconciliation, not yet. But it was an acknowledgement. And for now, it was enough. The scholarship fund, officially named the Barbara Ellison Scholarship for Linguistic Diversity, was formally established in October, with its first recipient to be named the following spring. Jasmine insisted on organizing a small reception at the university to celebrate the occasion. To my surprise, Melanie attended. She hovered somewhat uncomfortably on the periphery, but she came. And when the department chair acknowledged my contributions to the field, I saw my daughter watching me with an expression I had not seen in years. Something that looked not unlike pride, or at least recognition. After the reception, as we stood together in the autumn twilight waiting for our respective cars, Melanie cleared her throat. I get it now, she said quietly. What you meant, about being seen. I nodded, giving her time to continue. Watching those people talk about your work today, she continued, hearing how you have influenced this field, I realized I never allowed myself to see that part of you. It was easier to dismiss it than to acknowledge that my mother had this whole meaningful existence beyond me. It is not too late to see it now, I offered gently. She nodded, her eyes on the horizon instead of meeting mine. I am trying. My car arrived first. As I prepared to leave, Melanie surprised me by giving me a brief, awkward hug. Thank you, she whispered, for not giving up completely. I did not ask what she referred to specifically. The scholarship? The possibility of reconciliation? My maternal love despite everything? Perhaps she meant all those things. Maybe she wasn't entirely sure herself. As I drove back home through tree-lined streets beginning their autumn transformation, I felt a similar shift inside me. Not the dramatic leaf drop of total renewal, but the gradual change of colors that precedes it. Subtle and beautiful in its transitional state. In the last few months, I had regained more than my dignity. I had regained my voice, my boundaries, my sense of self-worth beyond maternal sacrifice. And in doing so, perhaps I had given Melanie a chance to regain something too, a relationship based on genuine recognition rather than expectation and obligation. It remained to be seen if she would fully seize that opportunity. True change happens slowly, if it happens at all, But for the first time in years, I felt hopeful about the possibility. For the moment, the will had not changed, but the legacy it represented had already begun its transformation from a mere financial inheritance to something far more valuable. The understanding that respect, once earned, must be maintained, that love without recognition is incomplete, that even the quietest voice deserves to be heard. And sometimes that voice must speak through silence before it can be truly valued for the wisdom it holds. Next, we have 2 other incredible stories waiting for you. Just click on the image you want to see and it will speak.